Hi everyone, welcome to my channel Bibbidi Bobbidi Books. My name is Ellie and this is going to be a recommendations video. So over the years I have been getting more and more into horror, and I've discovered that there is a particular niche of horror that I really enjoy, and it's like fungi horror. So you know when you have horror that has like a nature element to it, so think mushrooms, think fungal growths, think nature taking over the body, anything with like a dank, mildewy, you know, descriptive setting, and I just love it, especially if it has a little bit of a weird twist to it as well, maybe something psychological, maybe something a bit supernatural. I just love that kind of horror. And I've found it really hard over the years to find a recommendations list for this particular subgenre of horror. So I thought I would compile together a list for you in case you find that helpful. Most of them are books that I've read and really enjoyed. And I also have a handful at the end of books I haven't yet read, but I'm excited to try. So yeah, without further ado, let's jump straight into the first fungi horror book recommendation. So the first recommendation I have for you is a book called Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. You might have heard of this one before because it was really big on BookTube a couple of years back when it was first released, and for good reason. I loved this book. This is a Gothic horror and it's set in Mexico, and we follow a socialite called Noemi who receives this really suspicious letter from her cousin who's been newly married. And because the letter is so weird, Noemi decides to go and check up on her cousin. So she goes and she moves in with her cousin and her new husband and his family in this remote manor house in Mexico. And she quickly finds out that there is something very strange and sinister going on, and that her cousin is very much in danger. And that's all I want to say about this one, because I think it's fun to find out for yourself what's really going down. But it absolutely has the Gothic vibes to it, and you know, the manor house has that kind of like dank, mouldy sort of atmosphere to it as well. And yeah, I really enjoyed this one. It is quite slow paced in the beginning, but my goodness does it pay off with an explosive ending. And yeah, that is my first choice. Okay, so the next recommendation I have for you is House of Hollow by Crystal Sutherland. This is one for you if you enjoy a dark fairy tale retelling, because it definitely reads like that, and it takes a lot of inspiration from classic fairy tales, which usually are pretty dark. And this is such an interesting one because it has a mystery at the heart of the story, because in this book we follow our protagonist who has two sisters, and the three of them actually went missing when they were children for like a month, I think it was. It was a really long time, and they can't remember what happened to them. All they know is that they turned up again, they were found, and they all had like a scar on their neck, a moon-shaped scar. And yeah, then they grow up. We fast forwards to when our main character is a young woman, she might be a teenager, and her eldest sister goes missing again under suspicious circumstances, and so she decides to try and find out what happened to her sister, and in doing so she kind of unburies some truths about what happened to her when she was a child, and things get weird. I feel like the cover of this one definitely gives you an impression of what it's like. It has that real creepy nature element to it, some really visceral descriptions. I remember there was one particular scene where our main character is in this house that she used to stay in, and she peels back some of the wallpaper, and behind the wall is just covered in mould. And it's just, yeah, it's just got that really dark, gruesome vibe to it. There's quite a lot of body horror, but it pairs that really well with a femininity, so it's also quite beautiful in a way. And I just really enjoy the contrast between those two things in this book, and how, you know, the two things can coexist as well. So you have the grotesque alongside the kind of aesthetically pleasing, and yeah, it just makes for a very sort of atmospheric and creepy read. The next recommendation I have for you is What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. Again, the cover of this one definitely gives you that impression. So this is a haunted house type book, and it's actually a retelling of The Fall of the House of Usher by Edgar Allan Poe. So if you're a fan of that particular novel, you might want to check out this sort of reimagining of it. And yeah, this one is again very atmospheric. It's quite short, so it's perfect if you're looking for something to just get through quickly, if you want to snuggle up with something creepy for an evening in October, or yeah, you're just fancying something creepy but you don't want to delve into a big novel, then I would highly recommend this one. You've also got quite a lot of body horror in this one, but also some creepy weird things to do with animals, and again it's just very, very atmospheric, but also it has a little bit of humour in it, which is something that I do enjoy about T. Kingfisher's horror books. She does tend to balance things out with a little bit of humour as well, but yeah, I really, really enjoyed that one. Okay, so because I really enjoyed T. Kingfisher, I had to include another one of her novels, and that is The House with Good Bones. So I recently read this one, and again, I really, really enjoyed this one. This one is much more of a cozy horror, if that's a thing. It feels quite comforting because of that humour that's in this one. I would say this one's definitely more humorous than What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. But yeah, this is a story about a woman who goes to visit her mum for a couple of weeks because she gets a call from her brother, who is quite concerned about her mum. He thinks that she's acting a little bit strange. So she goes to visit, and when she arrives at the house, she immediately notices that something is off because her mum has redecorated the whole house. So where it used to be really bright and colourful, it's now sort of whitewashed, and it's all just really plain and neutral inside. And her mum has rehung up some paintings and things that her grandmother used to have when she lived in the house, because it was actually her grandmother's house in the past. And so yeah, something is off, and her mum is acting even more anxious than usual, and things go from there. I don't want to say too much about any of these books because, you know, you can really get into spoiler territory with horror, but this definitely has a nature horror element to it. And what I really liked about this book is that each section or each chapter opens with a description of a particular type of rose, because our main character's grandmother was a really keen gardener and she grew all of these fantastic roses. And so yeah, you get a little piece of information about different types of roses at the beginning of each chapter, so it definitely has that nature feel to it. But yeah, I really love this one. I thought it had some really lovable characters and also some really great dialogue. T. Kingfisher is amazing at writing character dialogue and making it quite funny and quite relatable. So yeah, I had a great time with that one. Okay, so next up I actually have some science fiction to recommend to you, and the first one is The Strange by Nathan Ballingrud. So this is such a fun book. It's set in an alternate reality where humans colonised Mars, I think it's back in the 30s, and they basically mine for this mineral on Mars called the Strange, and it's really, really valuable because the Strange seems to give machinery the illusion of sentience. And they basically mine for this material, ship it back to Earth, and then one day Earth goes silent. So the people who are left on Mars are stranded, they no longer have any communication with their home planet, and we kind of follow the chaos that follows on from that. Our main character is a young girl called Annabelle Crisp, and she lives with her dad on Mars. They live in this diner. Her mum actually went back to Earth before Earth went silent, so she's not sure whether or not her mum is still alive. And the story kicks off when their diner gets broken into, and there's this gang that basically steals some stuff from them, including a piece of machinery that has the voice recording of our main character's mum on it. So of course our main character is very upset and decides to kind of go on a revenge mission to try and get this piece of machinery back, because it's the last piece of her mum that she has. And she ends up going out into the wilds of Mars and finding out a little bit more about the planet and about this material called the Strange and its effects on machines but also on humans, and it all gets a little bit weird. What I loved about this story is that it blends so many genres, because it reads kind of like a Western because it's got a quite old-fashioned writing style, but it also has some retro vibes because they talk about, you know, like flying saucers and things. And it also has some naturey, weird, fungi, Vandermeer-esque type horror in there as well. So it's just such a fun blend. So yeah, I had a lot of fun and would recommend that to you if you enjoy sci-fi. The next sci-fi that I want to recommend to you is a book called The Luminous Dead, written by Caitlin Starling. This has one of the coolest setups for a book that I think I've ever read. It's so interesting because in this world we follow our main character, who is a cave explorer, or at least she's kind of posing as one. She's never really had formal training to be a cave diver explorer, but she's done it casually, and she's kind of trying to pass herself off as a professional so that she can earn enough money to get off planet. And she decides to take on this mission to basically map out this cave route, and it's an incredibly dangerous mission. On this world, you know, it's vital that you wear a spacesuit when you go down into these caves, something that can monitor your body temperature, something that can administer medication if you need it. You know, the suit literally recycles your water, you're catheterized, and you eat by like inserting canisters of food into your stomach, like directly into your stomach. So it's all kind of very high tech. And because this suit is so complex, you normally have a whole team of people around you to help control the suit to make sure everything is working as it should be. But our main character quickly finds out that actually she only has one handler, who is a woman called M. And so basically she is fully dependent on this other woman to make sure that she stays alive and make sure everything's going okay. And the whole book is basically a conversation between the two characters as, you know, our main character goes further down into these cave situations and becomes more and more paranoid. She starts seeing some weird things. There may or may not be glowing fungi. And yeah, it's a really frightening situation because obviously her handler M has complete control over her suit. She can stop her suit from moving if she wants her to. She can even administer medication to knock her out. You know, she can change the settings on her visor so that she can see better in the dark, but she can also do it so that she can, like, you know, change the image that she's seeing. So it's a really frightening situation, but just so fascinating, incredibly claustrophobic. And there's also quite a lot of technical talk about caving, which you may or may not appreciate reading this book. It is quite a slow build of tension, but I personally just thought it was so intense and terrifying because of the setting. Okay, so next up we have Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer. I of course had to include this one. It's such a classic, and for a reason, because it's so good. If you like weird speculative horror, then I think that you will really enjoy this one if you haven't read it already. But this is a horror book about a team of scientists who go to explore this environmental disaster zone known as Area X, and they are the 12th group to go and explore this area. Everyone else who's come before them have come to some kind of disastrous end. They've either become infected, or they've died, or they've just become lost. So yeah, no one's really sure what is going on in this area, and we follow our main character, who is the biologist of the group. They're all unnamed, they just go by their professions, but we're following the biologist, and they go into this area and they're trying to map it basically. And we quickly see what happens as they go into this disaster zone and as they start to become infected and possibly, you know, changed by the weird environment that's around them. And the reason why I've chosen this for this list is because it has that nature feel. Area X is very overgrown with lush greenery and, you know, weird plants that seem like they're perceiving you. And yeah, there's a big lighthouse that they explore, and within the lighthouse there's some strange fungi. and yeah, it's very, very strange. Don't expect to have all of your questions answered by the end of this book. It does get quite speculative, but it is a really, really fascinating read, and one that I think that you would want to sit and think about after you've read it. And yeah, I just enjoy those kinds of books. Okay, so moving on to some books that I haven't actually read but I think would be perfect for this list. The first one I've got my eye on is a book called Sorrowland by Rivers Solomon. This is an author that I have read from before and really enjoyed. And yeah, this one sounds great. I'm just going to read you the synopsis. It says, Vern, 7 months pregnant and desperate to escape the strict religious compound where she was raised, flees for the shelter of the woods. There she gives birth to twins and plans to raise them far from the influence of the outside world. But even in the forest, Vern is a haunted woman. Forced to fight back against a community that refuses to let her go, she unleashes incredible brutality far beyond what a person should be capable of. Her body is racked by inexplicable and uncanny changes. That's all I'm going to read. I feel like that definitely gives you a flavour. You know, the fact that she runs away to the woods, there's obviously some kind of body horror going on because it mentions that her body is changed. I think that one sounds like it's going to be so creepy. Okay, so the next one that I think sounds so good is a book called The Seep, written by Channa Porter. So again, I'm just going to read from the description for you. So it says, Trina is a trans woman whose life is irreversibly altered in the wake of a gentle but nonetheless world-changing invasion by an alien entity calling itself the Seep. Through the Seep, everything is connected. Capitalism falls, hierarchies and barriers are broken down. If something can be imagined, it is possible. Trina and her wife live blissfully under the Seep's utopian influence until Deba begins to imagine what it might be like to be reborn as a baby, which will give her the chance at an even better life. Using Seep tech to make this dream a reality, Deba moves on to a new existence, leaving Trina devastated. Heartbroken and deeper into an alcoholic binge, Trina chases after a young boy she encounters, embarking on an unexpected quest. In her attempt to save him from the Seep, she will confront not only one of its most avid devotees, but the terrifying void that Deba has left behind. Wow, that sounds so strange, but in the best kind of way. So this is obviously a sci-fi horror, and yeah, a really unique premise there. And again, the cover looks like something that would be perfect for this particular video. So yeah, I'm excited to give that one a go. Okay, so the next recommendation I have for you is actually an anthology called Fungi, and some of the authors include Sylvia Moreno Garcia and Jeff Vandermeer, both of whom are already on this list. So yeah, I think this one sounds fantastic. It says on the description it's a collection of fungal wonders and terrors. Writers reach into rich territory first explored by William Hope a century ago, the land of the fungi. Stories range from noir to dark fantasy, from steampunk to body horror. So yeah, I think this is going to be a real mix of genres, all that have a fungal element to them, and I just think it sounds so good. So yeah, I'm definitely going to be picking that one up at some point. Okay, and the final book I want to talk to you about is a book called The Beauty by Alia Whiteley. So again, I haven't actually read this one, but the cover absolutely looks like it would be perfect for this list. Again, I'll just give you a quick read of the description. So it says, somewhere away from the cities and towns in the Valley of the Rocks, a society of men and boys gather around a fire each night to listen to their history recounted by Nate, the storyteller. Requested most often by the group is the tale of the death of all women. They are the last generation. One evening, Nate brings back new secrets from the woods, peculiar mushrooms that are growing from the ground where women's bodies lie buried. These are the first signs of a strange and insidious presence unlike anything ever known before. Discover the beauty. That just sounds so good. So yeah, that is my list of recommendations for you, some of which I have read and really enjoyed, some of which are definitely on my TBR. Please let me know if you read any of these and if you enjoy them. Also let me know if you enjoy this particular, you know, little niche of horror, because I want to know that I'm not alone in my weird love of fungi horror. So yeah, let me know in the comment section, and thank you so much for watching. As always, don't forget to like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to see some more from me, and I guess I'll see you next time with another video. Bye!